Hi, this is Scott Quimby from Computer Systems Integrators. I'd like to welcome you to the October version of Tech Talk. We do these 4 times a year, generally October, January, March, and May. And we're going to start off with just some short updates on a bunch of different things. So here we go. Windows XP. Windows XP, it's actually less now. It's about 140 days away from end of life. Basically, Windows XP will go end of life on April 8th, 2014. What does that mean? That means you're going to get no Windows updates. You're going to get no security patches. You're going to get no Microsoft support. There's actually been a discussion in the trade press that what's going on is a bunch of these bad folks that are writing these exploits. They say they sell on the black market for about 50 grand exploit, but they know that Microsoft is not going to be producing any updates after April 8th. And so what they're doing is they're sitting on these known exploits waiting for April 8th to come. And they predicted we'll probably see a period of relative calm with XP. And then after the 8th, the estimate I read was it's going to be about $150,000 in exploit because Microsoft's not going to fix it. Not going to fix it at all. No way is that going to change. You really need to not have Windows XP in your organization after April 8th. Especially with anything with customer information, student information, financial information, banking information, they absolutely have to go, and really it all has to go. But if I had to prioritize, I'd put those at the top of the list. If for some reason you can't retire all your XP before April 8th, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure that you are just so righteous about your firewall, about your intrusion protection, about your antivirus support, and have anti-malware support, and have something that not only does antivirus and anti-malware, but also does some sort of web reputation. And by that, it's content filtering. Basically going out and saying that the antivirus product can get in the middle of those web connections you make going to web pages so that it's going to be blocked, and even if you have an exploit that those type of products would hopefully prevent it from even getting to you. Trends, Office Scan, for instance, has that, and it's not the only one. So that's a big deal. Exchange 2003 is also a discontinued product on April 8th. Same deal. No security patches, no updates, no support. Exchange 2003 has been pretty stable. It's been a long time since Microsoft has had a security patch that I know of for that, but still it's time to move on. Updates. Java update 7.45 is the most current version of Java. Java 6 is discontinued now. There's no more updates for it. Java being one of the most exploited ways for web traffic to do bad things to you, you really want to update your Java. That's the current version. Adobe Reader is at 11.05 and change now. Adobe 9 is now end of life with no further security updates. It was recently discontinued. The only supported versions of Adobe Reader are 10 and 11, and those are the ones that have security updates. Adobe also announced recently that their source code had been stolen and customer data had been stolen, and that looks pretty nasty as to what's going on there. Flash, again, there's Flash at the moment. iTunes, Firefox is now at 25. There's a major IE exploit out there. Microsoft, they said they fixed it. Now they said they haven't. iOS, there's some issues going on there. We're now at, 704. Just mostly little issues. A month ago, there was 80 non-security updates for Office 2013, one of which broke the Outlook 2013 reading pane. Kind of scary stuff. Internet Explorer has been released now. Things to be mindful of. Remember, once either Internet Explorer 10 or Internet Explorer 11 has been installed on a machine and you touch group policies, Internet maintenance and group policies is removed forevermore, and you can't get it back even if you remove IE 10 or 11. There is, just like IE 10, there is a block GPO. I list the details to block IE 11. You can put that in as a group policy and prevent your users from getting it. What I've read of IE 11 is it's a lot better than IE 10, a lot faster, a lot more normal. Its reason for being, I guess, besides cleaning up IE 10's issues, is it's touch optimized. It's the default browser in Windows 8.1, more tabs, faster switching. They love Skype now since Microsoft bought it. With all IE upgrades, you need to test your applications against it. And if you're not sure that the places you go work with newer versions of IE, you probably should block it. And if you've let it come through, you probably should basically put the websites in compatibility mode to protect your end user's stability, not viruses, just stability. Windows 8.1, it's now available. Windows 8.1 is a free update. It comes down if you have an OEM version of Windows 8, meaning it came with Windows 8 on the box. It came down with Windows 8, or it will come down through the Windows update process with Windows 8. However, if you bought a volume license of Windows 8, a commercial license of Windows 8 that didn't come preloaded, they make you actually boot the CD and upgrade offline, which is really random, because if they know how to do it through Windows Update, then why don't they do it? Features that they have: scalable tile sizes. They have the pseudo start button, but it just brings you back to the tile interface versus a traditional start menu we're used to in Windows. They will allow, again, a direct boot to the desktop versus forcing you into the tiles. And that's pretty nice, because that makes it look pretty much like Windows 7 for those of you who want it to look like Windows 7. They have a bunch of features here that they've done. There's a lot of really good trade press on this Bing Smart Search integration. Dynamic snap multitasking. They can now run the same application twice, doing two different things. Windows 95 has come back in Windows 8.1. They have better user interface tuning, a lot better help and tips, new apps, improved old apps, improved Microsoft Store, Internet Explorer 11, improved SkyDrive integration. They're going to change the name because somebody sued them on SkyDrive. Better Windows File Explorer. Skype is their friend now, so they want to do Skype for everything where I am. Better apps and filters control, better start screen. You can put your wallpaper on the start tiles. And there's a little blurb that says they have better 3D printing. I don't really know what that means yet, but I read that. So this is a Windows 8 start screen. Notice you have places to click here. Around the edges, there's a little blip way in the corner here on the right. And there's a down arrow there. This is the closest thing you're going to get to a start menu now. You can size these tiles now, so you don't have to take up as much real estate if you don't want to. But this is essentially the start menu, as close as you're going to get. This is what a Windows 8.1 desktop looks like. Notice in the bottom left, you see a very normal looking taskbar. Same on the bottom right. It's pretty normal. Um, you click on the little window pane, and that's your start tile button. And here's the secret sauce. This is what people have been waiting for. On the left side of the screen, we can see a right-click start. If we right-click the start button, a lot of the common system things that we're going to want to do are there. And then if I right-click on the taskbar and click Properties, you see where the red arrow is. That's where the checkbox goes if I want to, if I want to go directly to the desktop. So if I want to boot up and go to the desktop, just like I did in Windows 7 or XP, that's where you put the check. And that's what Windows 8.1 does for you. We can resize tiles. We basically right-click, put the little checkbox here, select resize down at the bottom here, and then pick what we want to do with the tile. The other thing, one of the complaints of Windows 8 has been people don't know where to click because there used to be buttons, and now you just kind of hover in places, and if you hover in the right place, then stuff appears. What they did, no lie, they basically, in Windows 8.1, have these arrows that appear in the help to tell you where to hover. So you look in the bottom left here. Move your mouse pointer all the way into the corner and click. Keep moving your mouse pointer until into the corner until it disappears. So this is their answer to taking away buttons to click on. Help will give you big arrows to tell you to hover in places where there's nothing for things to appear. Another thing happened recently in the last month or so. I've been harping on all you guys to have an Active Directory backup strategy, Active Directory backup agent, whether it's with Commvault, whether it's with Backup Exec. I really want you to have that. We had an actual need with a site to run an Active Directory OU restore. It was really cool. It went extremely fast. Probably 15 minutes we were done. However, and it brought back 75 users. It put them back in their groups. It reestablished their rights on every server, on every share, to their home directory, and the like. However, what happened is all the users came back disabled because of password complexity problems. And the problem was that it was set to remember your last password, so you can't just go cat, dog, cat for password. And because I restored these 75 people, they literally came back with the password they had right before they were deleted. And therefore, that was one of the previous passwords used, and so they all failed. Active Directory doesn't have a quick way to mass reset passwords. So that was 75 users clicking to reset their password manually and saying change on next login, and that took however long it took. I didn't want to gut the password policy to just say never mind about having passwords, because then you'd effectively have no policy. If you have that AD Manager Plus or Manage Engine, which I really encourage people to have in Active Directory networks on a DC, it's minutes. It's just a thing of beauty. If not, which in this case the answer was no, then you just suffer changing passwords until you're through. The other thing that was really strange, at least initially in the restore, is all these people came back, all their rights were good, the groups were good, their home directories were good, everything was good. But the Exchange mailboxes all disconnected, and they were all phantom mailboxes. And then what happened is, so we were like, how do we get our mailboxes connected? Because they all showed as disconnected mailboxes. Well, what happened is Exchange figured that out on its own. And over the evening, it just, in its normal maintenance window, just reassociated everybody, and everybody was fine in the morning. It was very impressive. That was with Compo. Trend. Many of you are running Trend, various versions of Trend. Trend Office Scan. There's a major update, an SP3 update for the server and for the workstations. Jamie was talking about this, and he really wants everyone to do it. And he's willing to help those of you who have not done it or need help doing it. Dramatically improves web reputation. Again, that's that thing to kind of get in the middle of conversations. So even if you have that Java exploit, hopefully web reputation is going to prevent the bad thing you just clicked on from actually exploiting it. It does require reboots of the server. It does require reboots of the workstation. If you have machines that are deep frozen, you must unfreeze them. He wants it everywhere. The other thing that's pretty cool is there is in the box with Office Scan a VDI plugin module. One thing that we're always concerned about, say with VMware with their VDI workstation images, is when they go to regenerate the pool, we need them to come up uniquely managed. And without putting the VDI plugin in, what happens is all the VMware VDI machines in the pool show up as a single machine in the Trend AV console, so it makes it difficult to manage. So this plugin basically makes sure that in the regeneration, each one comes into the console discreetly, so we can manage it discreetly. Good stuff. Google has discontinued support for XP, but a year after XP is discontinued. They're one of the few people that aren't discontinuing their support when XP is discontinued. We had a bunch of people go into Active Directory over the summer, and people got turned around on some group policy items. Couple things, just philosophically, as to how we do things. Number one, build your group policy. We build it, and then after we build it, we need to link it. And linking it means that we're basically going to put it at whatever point of the OU or tree that we want it to take effect. I had a bunch of people that they would build it, but then they wouldn't link it anywhere, and then they go, oh, it's broken, and they're trying to troubleshoot it, and there's nothing to troubleshoot it. They just never linked it into the tree. Then the next thing is replicate your group policy. If you're trying to do it across town and there's another DC over there, it's got to get there, right? So we had a couple cases where people worked in one location, made a group policy to fix something, and then tried to test it across town, and they had a different home DC, and what happened is they said, oh, it didn't work. And then back to, oh, I'm trying to troubleshoot, what did I do wrong? And you did nothing wrong, except you didn't wait for it to go there. The rule always is, if you're in a hurry, do your work in Active Directory, whether it's Active Directory users and computers, whether it's Group Policy Management Console, whatever it is, do it as close to the user as possible. So if the user across town was waiting for this, then I would have done the group policy across town so that it was on the DC that user would naturally use first, and then tell the person to use the policy. So that was the most common mistakes from the summer that we had people make. So I just said that first point there. If it's new and urgent, build a link as close as possible. GP update is your friend on the server and workstation. Use it to hasten delivery. I generally do my change. I do a GP update on the server. If I'm sitting on the workstation, I could do a GP update on the workstation as well. Rebooting a workstation or a server is the same as GP update /force. Remember, computer-side GPOs often need a reboot to take effect. User-side GPOs will be immediate without a login once they get there, without a logout. Basically, the exception would be new login scripts or changes to login scripts. So if I map a drive letter M and I messed it up, then I could fix drive letter M, but you're not going to dynamically see it. But in terms of these dynamic changes on the user side, let's say I want to block right-click and say you're only allowed to right-click in applications but not system functions. That should take effect on the user side without a reboot or a logout. As soon as it gets there, you should just not have that anymore. So again, existing login script changes do not follow the rule of replication. So if I messed up that drive M map, the login script was already there. I fix it, it's going to be there immediately, regardless of where you are in the network. However, if it's a new login script, I'm going to have to wait. A couple other cool little things. You see here I'm doing a GP update, which I said I was going to do. And it's gone and it's told me that something isn't running yet. All right. So basically, I have a warning that the client-side folder redirection was unable to apply one or more settings because something has to happen first. Now, cool thing they tell you is that if you type this command right here, gp result space /h space make up a name gp report.html, and then click on the report. This is the same thing effectively as group policy modeling. You hear me all the time talking about group policy modeling and how awesome that is in figuring out what happens when John sits on this PC using this domain controller in this site, and see what happens to John and conversely what doesn't happen to John. Well, this is kind of like that on the fly. So you can type this, click on the HTML file that's created, and it's going to tell you what is or isn't going on. Very, very cool. Here's something that happened over the summer. All right. We started doing a lot of Server 2012, and you get these yellow exclamation points. A fast link was detected. And I'm thinking, why is a fast link a problem? Why are you giving me a warning on that? And when I researched this, basically, it isn't a problem. It's just telling you that you have a fast link. So it's like, well, why are you giving me a warning if it's not a problem? So when you go to Server 2012, we're used to looking on these things and seeing exclamations and stuff as stuff we need to track down. If it says fast link, that's not a problem. However, the second one is a problem. Okay, I have a policy here called no UAC, and it says there's a Active Directory sysfile version mismatch. What does that mean? That means something's not replicating. There's possible replication issues. So for whatever reason, I may have, and I in fact did at this location, have a replication issue. So if somebody says across town, I waited, it's a day, and the thing still isn't happening yet, what's up with that? That's what's up with that. It's basically a replication issue. Now, you get back to how do I find something that's bad, that's broken, all right? Here, look at this example. What I've done here is I've run GP update, and it's come up again with an error, and it basically has come up and it said that a policy can't run. But notice what Microsoft did. They gave us this gobbledygook name, all right, squiggle bracket B3E B6E19-15 blah, 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 squiggle bracket. What the heck is it? You told me something's broken. You told me this name that means nothing to me, and you tell me you're not doing something until I fix it. So the question becomes, how do I know what to do? Well, there's a really easy way to do that, okay? And basically what you do is you start group policy modeling, console from generally a domain controller, wherever you've installed it, and I go into the search function, and that squiggle bracket, gobbledygook squiggle bracket, is in fact a GUID, and that represents a group policy. So what we need to do is we need to translate that gobbledygook squiggle bracket thing into a name, because if you tell me a name, I can go look at it and see what's broken. So the way we do that is we go into the search function in group policy objects, and we say search for a GUID, which equals explicitly whatever that gobbledygook name is, with the squiggle brackets on both sides. And then we say search, and look, wham bam, in 3 seconds it comes up and tells us the broken GPO is called no UAC. Now that's the one we saw on the other screen, said that it has a sysvol mismatch. So that's how we translate this gibberish into something that's actionable, because now I can go back to group policy modeling, I can look at this, I can examine it, I can delete it, recreate it, whatever I want to do, but now I know what I'm supposed to be looking at, and can take it from there. Now, we already did this. This just is a broader view of that. I spelled HIPAA wrong. I'm sorry about that. HIPAA is HIPAA. We're going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about HIPAA. HIPAA is a law that's been around for a long time. But on September 23rd, something changed dramatically. And that's this law got a whole lot nastier in terms of enforcement and penalties for people that are sloppy in their use of protected healthcare information and electronic protected health information. And the purpose of HIPAA is to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all electronic personal health information or personal health information. And the spirit of the law is to protect against reasonably anticipated threats to the security and integrity of the information. And the second thing is protection against reasonably anticipated impermissible uses to the disclosure of EPHI. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and you should certainly consult with your attorney, but I'll tell you what I have heard here. In the K-12 education space, we worry about things like nurses, special education, psychologists, social workers. There's another competing law to HIPAA which applies to most of you for that. Apologies for the typo. For physical things you need to worry about: physical access to where servers are, surveillance cameras, biometric access to server rooms, front desk lobby security, facility security plan, how do you secure your buildings. Contingency plans sounds a whole lot like DR. If you get hit by a meteor, how can you get patient health records? Media reuse and disposal. If you replace Sally's computer with a new computer, what do you do with the old computer? What do you do with the hard drive? You wipe it 7 times following the DoD standard 01 protocol. What do you do to protect what was on that computer? That's physical stuff. Technical controls. Do you know what software is installed on your authorized and unauthorized is installed on your computers in your network? Are people downloading random things that are putting you at risk, creating backdoors into your network? Are people setting up their own LogMeIn accounts and have backdoor access to their desktops to access your information? What are you doing for maintenance and monitoring to make sure you have the appropriate patches, the appropriate security for antivirus? Make sure you have those Java updates, those Adobe updates, all those things. Make sure you know about login failures, uh, who's changing groups, boundary defense. That sounds a whole lot like a firewall with intrusion protection. Um, what's your process as you find things to fix them? What are you doing for malware? What are you doing to control the ports on and network services that go through your network? That sounds a whole lot like a managed switch. Um, CSI's Paladin Sentinel remote monitoring provides much of the basic oversight information to allow you to develop a HIPAA compliance plan. And again, it's HIPAA is the official name. Apologize for that. So we can fill in a lot of those gaps if you say, I don't know about those things, and I deal with electronic protected health information. We have, I think, a very good answer for much of that in terms of the technical side. We've gone through some HIPAA compliance training to go through what the rules are and the like, and are happy to talk to you further. Dropbox, like LogMeIn, Dropbox has multi-factor authentication. It's very cool. If I go to the web now and try to access my personal Dropbox, it'll page my phone and it'll ask me to type the number in from my phone, and that's free. Same thing with LogMeIn now. If you use LogMeIn, go under Security tab and do that. If you're doing those things, you really, really want to do that. I mean, really want anything that you can do to add multi-factor authentication to your network for remote access to data is huge, and we have a good story for that now. Some other changes. Microsoft has, we've been struggling, many of us, with KMS and the pain of getting KMS going. 5 copies for Office, 6 for Windows Server, 25 for Windows 7, less the Server OS. Now we have Server 2012, Server 8, Windows 8.1, and the list goes on in terms of this. Once we get it running, it's really cool. It's real mindless. It's all about that startup pain. I was talking to someone earlier today, navigating through that startup pain, and we've talked about it before in previous meetings. Microsoft is starting to evolve beyond KMS, and it's kind of a radical concept. I mean, it's like basically something called GVLK, the concept that joining a computer to Active Directory would automatically activate the computer. So you basically do a one-time verbal call to Microsoft to set this up, and then the actual Active Directory tree becomes the activation mechanism. Makes just immense sense. However, as all good Microsoft stuff goes, it only starts with Windows 8.1. So all of us who have Windows 7 and Server 2008 R2 and the like, well, we got to deal with what we're doing with KMS. And if you're having problems with KMS, let us know, and we can fix that. Now, you remember earlier we were talking about replication and our example of group policy being stuck with some sort of replication error. Here is the command to replicate, sync everything with all the domain controllers and do it now. So if I just want to say I've made some changes and I want to just push all this stuff out, this is what I would type, and the last slash there, that stuff is case sensitive. So that's the secret sauce. Now Microsoft, did a bunch of strange things we've been talking about. They did something immensely wonderful for you. One of the problems that we've had with Microsoft is when they went to Windows Vista and Windows 7 and Server 2008 and the like, you couldn't just reach in and delete the $NT hidden folders in SQL and Windows to clean up previous um, Windows updates to get the space back on C. They wouldn't let you do that. They created that WinSXS folder in Windows, and they said it's very, very bad for you to go into that folder and delete things because you're disrupting the integrity of the update chain from the beginning of time forward. And that frustrated a lot of people because their C drives kept growing based on Windows updates from the beginning of time. Now, Microsoft did give you either the comp clean or the dism command, which we've talked about in previous meetings as to how to run that, where we can actually back off after you apply a service pack. We can back off the unneeded files, and that tends to give you like 800 meg or so of space, and that's been pretty cool. But in this last October Windows updates, what they finally did, just they buried it in there, is now they let you add these things directly from a traditional disk cleanup. So here you see I've gone into my computer on a Windows 7 machine after I've done the patch, and I have right-clicked on C, select Properties, Disk Cleanup. And now what you see is as it goes through evaluating, it's evaluating Service Pack backups, it's evaluating Windows Update cleanups, and when we come back to the screen, notice it's giving us those options. And in this case, it's telling us that there's 1.2 gig of Windows Update cleanup it can do for updates that have been superseded by other things. And so no more comp clean, no more dism. It's just right there. Really nice. Because, of course, when we're imaging, when we're doing copy default profile, these things, we really want our images to be as small and as tight as possible. And now they've given you the last mile that at least you can get at some of it. They still won't let you delete the uninstall files for things they think still are relevant. But the stuff they say are no longer required. They finally open it up. So that's cool. Real quick reminder, if we're doing if we're doing WSSIS in client registration, how to get the client registered. That's how. Often recycling the update service on the workstation helps this. This was huge this summer. SCCM endpoint. If you do not have the ability to do management of SCCM endpoint properly on the client side, by that I mean if I haven't put in all those excludes that Microsoft recommends for Active Directory, for SQL, for Exchange, and the like, and I just load SCCM endpoint, and I don't do those other things, it's not going to be that great. All right, and that's not just true about SCCM endpoint. It's true about Trend. It's true about Semantic. It's true about APG. It's true about them all. And I've harped on that in previous meetings. I've given out multiple times, the Microsoft recommended excludes. You really just want to do that stuff. And vendors may have their own as well. I had an application that I blew up, and it cost me a couple hours because it really needed SCCM endpoint to have that excluded from the update, from the folder needed to be excluded. And I literally blew up an upgrade. Basic recommendations is allow the server-side customization of endpoint. Sometimes it just really takes too long to try to go figure out where to go to put other things in. Be able to turn it off for the purpose of doing installs, put the appropriate excludes in. And this doesn't just apply to endpoint, as I said. It's everything. And this isn't picking on whether endpoint's good properly in terms of excludes and program installs, you're going to have problems. And we've just seen endpoint, SCCM endpoint have maybe more of that than we've seen in recent years with other vendors in terms of those rules we've known from the beginning of time. Disable your antivirus when you install my application are very true. And I wasted a lot of time because I didn't do that. Slow logins. This was huge this summer. It's always huge. The story always comes in, 10-minute logins, blue screen, black screen, nothing's going on. That tends to be that there's a Microsoft persistent drive mapping that's broken. Probably because what you did is you migrated a server and changed the path. You messed up. You had a share folder. You changed the rights. You messed it up. All right. The middle there is always my defense for that. If I'm going to map a drive letter, so here I'm going to map drive G, server name, whack, server name, whack, share name. And then I'm going to, I want it to work. Well, the defensive play is to always delete whatever you're going to add. So here I want to add G. The first thing I do is do that net use space G colon space /del space /yes. So I delete drive G to make sure there's not a previous real or phantom persistent drive mapping out there that will block my new mapping, and then I map it. If I always do the delete before the add, I'm generally not going to mess up the drive mapping, and it's going to work assuming the path is correct and the rights are correct. The other defense, I had a bunch of people this summer that were just complaining about this and and it was really hard to get my arms around it. So what I did is I did a logout script, and the logout script was just net space use space asterisk space /del space /yes. And basically what happened in the logout script is I just basically told it to delete all persistent drive mappings on the entire network on logout. And then whatever it was, wherever it was, however it came to be, it just went away. All right? And then on my login scripts, I still used the delete, then add, but then I explicitly put back what I wanted. Overnight, all the complaining went away. It just was magic. All right? And because I was deleting all the drive letters on the way out, it didn't matter that I deleted the home directory drive letter. It didn't matter I deleted the common drive letter because I was putting all that stuff back the next time they logged in. The only thing that could do, and I don't like to do it in my networks, is if you have people mapping manually persistent drive letters. So they go up to Windows and they just map a drive letter in Windows from the workstation. That logout script would eat that and take it out. But again, I don't like to do those one-off drive mappings at the workstation at the user level because they're so hard to maintain. I'd rather do them at the server level. And so in my world, that doesn't hurt people, and in fact just created tremendous calm literally overnight. Always, if you see red X's in my computer, that's the first clue that you have persistent drive mappings. If you see red X's, that's a persistent drive mapping that may be a sign of a failure, but always click on it. Sometimes it's just visual and it's not a problem, so you may need to click on it, and then if it opens, never mind. But if it doesn't open, then that's one that's messed up that you need to chase down. Same thing if you get to my computer and you don't see drive letters you're supposed to see, then that's another clue. That's not a persistent mapping problem. That's a clue that you have a drive mapping problem. If you do this, you're going to just eliminate the pain. And that's always it. It's that 10 minutes, black screen, blue screen. Your user will tell you it's 30 minutes, but it's about 10. And it's just Microsoft timing out on drive mappings. Now, in your handouts on the USB stick, what I have done is there's a new way to deal with the Windows friendly name problem. I've given you two handouts. One is exactly identifying, and I've given them out over and over again, but this always comes up. The Windows friendly name problem. And if you don't know what that is, that's where we do a folder redirect of, say, a Windows 7 home directory, My Documents to the home directory. And it picks up the friendly name of My Documents, and instead of saying Esquimby as the home directory, it says My Documents. And all of a sudden you have 700 folders, home directories all say My Documents. And you go, what's going on here? And how do I know which one is Esquimby? And the first handout shows you how to just put file name in the view, and that'll show you the true name. But the ultimate solution is to install File Server Resource Manager, which is free, and in your home directory shares or on the drive that your home directories exist, simply exclude desktop ini. I've provided that handout for you too on the USB sticks. I've been harping for over a year or more how we have this real issue as to how to image UEFI based machines, and UEFI is kind of like the thing after BIOS, the next generation BIOS. And Symantec has said for a couple years now we can't do it. It's been very frustrating. At the Maytech talk, Prayer showed you SCCM imaging and showed you that SCCM imaging can in fact do UEFI. Well, now what's happened is Symantec Ghost has come out and said they can do UEFI. And really the secret has been because WinPE4, which SCCM configuration manager was using, understands UEFI. And so therefore, if I boot with WinPE4, then I can see a UEFI partition, and therefore I could image it. So if you think like these Windows 8 all-in-one, it's a touchscreen tablet type thing, it's a laptop, that generally is UEFI. And that's what we're talking about here. So here's the link for Symantec as to how to do it. Now, I said when I wrote this that Alteris 6.9 SP5MR3 does not support WinPE4 and hence cannot do UEFI. However, I have since talked, and that's true, I have since talked to Symantec Enterprise Support, and since June they've been about to come out with SP6, and SP6 supports WinPE4 and hence supports UEFI in Alteris as a incremental upgrade. So, and the guy said, we've been going to come out with SP6 every month, and then we don't come out with it. Well, one of these months they're going to come out with it, and then we'll have it. Click to run. This is kind of an interesting thing. We're used to running MBSA, Microsoft Baseline Security Analysis, and we're used to basically seeing what updates we need, or run Microsoft Update, which is the Windows Update that shows us Microsoft applications. Windows Update shows us OS updates. Microsoft Update shows us OS updates plus it shows us like Office updates and SQL updates and Exchange updates and the like. We're used to that. But Microsoft has started doing this click to run, which is an application virtualization installation. And click to run is being used like in this Office 365 Microsoft Office 2013 downloads. If you install Office through click to run, then the update process for click to run is completely outside the normal Windows update process. So you'll run Microsoft Update against that machine that has a click to run copy of Microsoft Office 2013 on it, and it won't tell you that there's any updates to do, even though there's updates. Rather bizarre, why would Microsoft not use the update process that they have used successfully for years and years? But it's true. I give you the TechNet article, and it has to do with the fact that this is based on application virtualization, I think, to run it. So be aware of that. This is a pretty huge problem that's shown up. And I was literally just reading the other day that Microsoft thought they fixed it, and then they realized that they haven't fixed it. Basically, there's something that happened in an update where if you have Windows XP and you're running Microsoft Update, which is what we want you to run, so you see the application updates as well as the OS updates, it just goes nuts and it spikes the CPU with SVC host at 100%. And if you go back to Windows Update, it will be fine, but then you don't get the Microsoft Office updates. And Microsoft has acknowledged it, and they thought they fixed it. And I was reading a Microsoft person the other day asking for more information because they realized they didn't fix it. But if you have XP, which hopefully, based on our beginning discussion, you're about not to have, then you probably have this pain or you wonder why machines are inexplicably locking up when you're doing updates. This is why. Gave you a little handout here. I know with a Microsoft document, Microsoft acknowledges sometimes folder redirection goes weird, and we've all seen this at various times in our life. And there's their latest article on that. KMS client count. This was kind of a funky thing we saw. KMS, remember we talked earlier about the count needing to get to our minimum. Once we get to the minimum, life is great. However, KMS clients need to check in once every 180 days for sure. That's why if you're creating, say, a laptop for a road warrior, say you have a mobile workforce and you're sending laptops that you provision around the country to your reps, and they're never coming back to the mother office, and they're always going to be out and about, whatever. KMS is a really bad plan because they're not going to check in within 180 days, so the OS is basically going to go non-genuine 181 days from now. But if these people always are coming back to your office, then they'll check in with KMS, and it'll be great. It'll be wonderful. It's easier for you to deploy and the like. All right. But the KMS client count ages out every 30 days. So when the clients check in via DNS, and we've talked about KMS in other presentations extensively, they check in, they ask DNS, I'm a KMS client, where should I go? And they check in and say, hi, it's me. And they keep counting against those minimum counts. Every 7 days, if they're in the network, they'll ask to see KMS and tell them they're still here. So what happens is there's this thing called CMID, and basically at least 25 different CMID numbers need to be active and hit the KMS server every 30 days to keep above the count. What we had over the summer is people were imaging, and what they did as they're making their golden master image, they played with the skip rearm value and they set it to 1 in the unattended XML file in sysout. And then what they did is they forgot to undo it when they were done with the golden master making their final sysprep up to deploy. So they put the machines out with the skip rearm equals 1. And so what happened is every one of these machines, even though they sysprepped, even though they had their own SIDs, which is what sysprep is doing, even though they were totally righteous every other way, because they had the same CMID, the KMS server counted all the machines imaged this way as one machine. So what happened is, this happened to be a school. We forced this, as we do with many of you, we forced imaged a lab to get discreetly just to get the count above 25 so KMS would be happy, and then we then worried about them deploying their golden master and they turned stuff off. So as the summer wore on, over 30 days into the summer, all of a sudden the machines, the KMS server started aging out, and it said there was like 6 clients in the entire 3,000 computers in the district. And so all these machines started asking to be activated again, saying they couldn't because of insufficient count, all because of skip rearm. A couple other things for newbies in Active Directory. Computer names, you will see in the logs things like room 104-001 dollar or accounting dollar. That tends to be computer names. So when you see a login failure like that, that's a computer name. That's how it's displayed in the log. There is no GPO option to suppress Microsoft Office initials on first-time use. So if you're using roaming profiles, you do it once, it follows you around, you never think about it again. But if you're not using roaming profiles, if you're going with copy default profile, or just you build a machine and you image it and they get whatever they get, and they click on Office on the first machine and it says, what's your initials? And they click on Office on the second machine and it says, what's your initials? And they click on Office on the third machine and it says, what's your initials? Now, if they go back to those machines where they put their initials in, then life is going to be good. But if it's, say, a school with a lot of transient users where Johnny's going to be in the library, he's going to be in the lab, he's going to be in the classroom, he's not going to sit the same place in the library or the lab or the classroom day to day, then what's going to happen is this is going to create a problem, at least an annoyance. It's not really a problem. It's an annoyance because every day is Groundhog Day. It's going to ask you, you sit someplace new to type these stupid initials, and there's no setting. I can control so much through group policy, but I can't do that. Here's the secret to fixing that. Basically, you walk up to a machine that you did that on, and you export the HKey current user setting I show you here to a registry key. Then you open up your Office toolkit, and as part of your installation that you create to deploy Microsoft Office, you merely add as a section at the end to add a registry key to the install. And so you just import this registry key. And then when you run the install to install Microsoft Office, it embeds this key so that every user that sits down just gets random initials, ABC Inc., whatever, and it doesn't ask you the question. Very cool, but that's the secret sauce as to how to do that. And I list the TechNet article on that. So that's all I had for this presentation. We have many, many more if you're looking at the program for what is going on. We have Meraki presentation on Meraki MDM Management that you guys asked for. We have a bunch of stuff on using Windows Server 2012. We have a bunch of things on Active Directory 101 cleanup things that we'll be presenting shortly. We have Bob's going to do his wireless update on the latest wireless technology. He's going to talk about a bunch of VMware updates, how to use the 5.1 web console, snapshotting, connecting CD-ROM drives. There's also a big presentation he's going to do shortly on the how to provision EqualLogic SAN space to a VMware VM. So if we want to add 100 gig to a volume, a bunch of other things too. So at this point, looking at the time, why don't we take a break, and we'll come back shortly and talk about Windows Server 2012. So thanks so much. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. And wireless is in your handout. As to how to get on wireless, the food is around the corner. We're still doing breakfast. And if you go through the doors around the corner is where the restrooms are. Thanks.